enter into the NFL centennial year, we have continued to emphasize player protection as the game continues to evolve. During this past offseason, we reviewed thousands of plays, consulted with the Players Association, medical personnel, general managers, our legends, officials, and your coaches, and determined ways to improve the game and to protect you from unnecessary risk. We continue to learn how and when injuries are most likely to happen by reviewing and analyzing game and practice video, medical data, and equipment engineering, which leads us to annual modifications. These improvements include changes in both practice drills and in-game techniques that have been removed from the game. It remains a foul to lower your head to initiate and make contact with your helmet against an opponent. The modifications for this year are removing the blindside block, restricting leapers on point after tries and field goals, and solidifying changes to the kickoff, which are now permanent. In addition, instant replay will be used to confirm or reverse calls and no calls on offensive and defensive pass interference. To assist you in carrying out the mission of your team, we have developed this video explaining rule changes and points of emphasis for the 2019 season.
The rule changes we are about to review were made after much consultation and discussion beginning in February after the Super Bowl. During this process, a key focus is whether a rule can be officiated, coached, and played. Please pay close attention as we cover the changes and points of emphasis for this upcoming season.
The blindside block rule has been expanded. A blindside block is defined as a player initiating a block when his path is toward or parallel to his own end line, and he makes forcible contact to his opponent with his helmet, forearm, or shoulder. Here are some examples of illegal blindside blocks for the 2019 season. Now, let's look at a couple legal blocks. There are new restrictions for team celebrations. Beginning in 2019, anyone other than players in uniform entering the field to celebrate will result in a 15-yard penalty for unsportsmanlike conduct. Here is an example that would result in a foul. In 2018, designated members of the officiating department were given the authority to disqualify a player for non-football acts if a flag was thrown related to the act. In 2019, this will be expanded to include flags for any football acts. Here are some examples of plays from 2018 where players would have been disqualified. The kickoff rule was changed for a one-year trial period in 2018. Beginning in 2019, those adjustments have been made permanent. The kicking team is required to have 5 players on each side of the ball, and all kicking team players other than the kicker must be lined up with at least 1 foot on the yard line that is 1 yard behind their restraining line. Both feet must remain on the ground until the ball is kicked. Of the 5 players on either side of the ball, 2 must be between the inbounds line and the top of the numbers, and 2 must be between the bottom of the numbers and the sideline. For the receiving team, until the ball is kicked, All players must be inbounds and at least 8 players must be positioned between their restraining line and a spot 15 yards behind their restraining line. This is referred to as the setup zone. Until the ball is legally touched or the ball hits the ground, no player on the receiving team may initiate a block against the kicking team in the 15-yard area between the kicking team's restraining line and 5 yards behind the receiving team's restraining line. A double team block is permissible only by players who were initially lined up in the setup zone at the time of the kick. Any other players may not participate in a double team block at any time during a kick or during a return. All wedge blocks are prohibited. Enforcement of penalties on touchdowns has changed. Previously, fouls would only be enforced on the ensuing kickoff. Now, all fouls, live ball, dead ball, and fouls between downs prior to the snap can be enforced either on the succeeding kickoff or the try. Plays subject to boot reviews have been expanded. If a penalty flag is thrown that would negate a touchdown, the play will be reviewed to determine if there was a score before the defense elects to enforce the foul. 2-point conversion reviews will all be initiated by the replay official and are no longer challengeable by a coach. This is true no matter if the on-field ruling is good or no good. Also for the 2019 season, both offensive and defensive pass interference, whether called on the field or not, are reviewable. There are 2 points of emphasis for the 2019 season. The first covers holding on the backside of the run or line of scrimmage. Here are some examples of fouls. The second is the use of helmet rule passed last year. As a reminder, it is a foul if a player lowers his head to initiate and make contact with his helmet against an opponent. The rule for the use of helmet foul prohibits lowering the head and initiating contact with the helmet to any part of an opponent. Contact does not have to be to an opponent's head or neck area. Lowering the head and initiating contact to any part of an opponent's body is a foul. This rule is all-inclusive as it pertains to all players on the entire field. Here are some examples of use of helmet fouls.
Now let's review the process of game-related violations resulting in accountability. In accordance with the collective bargaining agreement between the NFL and the NFLPA, NFL Vice President of Policy and Rules Administration, Jon Runyan, a 14-year NFL offensive lineman, reviews game video and makes the initial decision on player accountability for on-field safety-related rules violations. Accountability can be a warning, a fine, and/or a suspension. If a violation is determined, Jon notifies the player in writing with a description of the violation and the accountability measure. Players have 3 days to appeal. As specified in the CBA, appeals are heard by officers jointly appointed and compensated by the NFL and the NFLPA. Pro Football Hall of Fame linebacker Derrick Brooks and former wide receiver James Thrash. Their decisions are final and binding. The fine schedule is approved by the NFLPA prior to training camp and is communicated to you in your player policies manual. Money collected from the player fines is donated through the NFL Foundation to programs that assist former players. These programs include the NFL Player Care Foundation, and NFLPA's Players Assistance Trust. The rule changes and points of emphasis we have discussed are for your protection and accountability to the high standards of safety and professionalism associated with playing in the National Football League. We in football operations are here to assist you if you have any questions. We wish you the very best as you begin another season. Be safe, play smart, and see you in camp.